Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
Free parking everywhere. Well, that sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? But a number of cities in China are actually heading in that direction. The goal is to free up more parking spaces. But is this a dream come true for drivers, or perhaps just a headache waiting to happen? We're live from our studios in Beijing. This is Roundtable. My name is Steve. We thank you very much for being with us today. And by we, I mean myself, Yushan and Yushan. First up. In 2026, a growing number of cities across China are slashing or even canceling parking fees, with some places offering completely free parking year-round. The trend has sparked a wave of discussions about how these changes are impacting car owners and local economies. From the streets of larger cities to rural counties far from those cities, the policies are reshaping urban mobility, making parking easier and more affordable. Sounds great, and on the surface, it looks like a win for drivers. But is it? Are there challenges that we haven't considered just yet? We'll talk about all of that today. Yushan and Yushan, good afternoon to you. I think we can all agree that parking is a pain in the butt in many, many, many major cities around the world. Number one, it's tricky to find a place to put your car. Number two, it can be very, very expensive. And that's not a situation that is restricted to one country or one city. It's a global problem.
Yes.
So let's get to this. This is a really interesting decision here in China. What was the decision?
Yeah. Finally, we are having that decision, and first listening to that news, that was such a thrill to see, to hear, and maybe to experience in the future that some of the parking space is going to be free and some of the price of these parking spaces is going to be lower.
Well, just before we get into the plan, parking in Beijing is in many other Chinese cities is kind of the same as it is everywhere around the world, right? You pay for your street parking. It can be difficult to find. It can be expensive. You get ticketed if you park in a place that you're not supposed to park. All of these same rules apply, yeah?
Yeah. Just like, as you said, in the urban area, in the rest of the world, too many cars and also too few spaces as the core reality here in Beijing or in a lot of cities in China. And there are some stats, actually. By the end of 2025, China had more than 469 million motor vehicles, with a parking shortage exceeding 80 million spaces.
Oh, that's a lot.
And the gap is still growing.
That's a lot of needed spaces, isn't it?
Yeah, and major cities are facing more and the most pressure because, example like Guangzhou has over 4 million cars and with a 30% shortage in some older districts. So in many cities, like no place to car when you get home, or can't even just move your car out when you want to get out. That's kind of a thing that, and also frustration you may face daily.
Because your car is blocked, you mean?
Yeah,
Yes.
that sounds like my daily life.
Oh, really?
Well, not that I now rent a place in the underground parking lot underneath the community I'm staying right now, but back in my parents' place, for example, their community is pretty much packed. And to park a car, you literally have to park somewhere illegal or somewhere that you're not supposed to park, while leaving enough space on the aisle that we now allow cars to come in and out, while putting your phone number at the front.
It was the same thing when I lived in Korea, but there was an extra little twist. So so I lived in an apartment complex, and in that complex, same problem. There's too many cars and there's not enough spaces. So the quote unquote rule was, if there's no space, you can park your car perpendicular to the one that's in the space. So it kind of forms a T, right?
Yeah, right.
But you have to leave your car in neutral, so that the person who wants to get out, if they want to get out, they can push your car out of the way.
Oh,
and
so
then
switch your gear to
end.
Yeah.
To neutral, so that they can move
Wow.
your car. Oh my goodness, I remember one day I forgot to leave it in neutral. I left it in park, and I was doing a radio show. I couldn't leave and come home.
Oh, my.
And I blocked a person in. That was not a fun afternoon for me, that's for sure. Okay, so to reiterate that point, it's stressful for everyone everywhere. So now let's get to the changes happening.
Well, the changes took place earlier in this year, in 2026, where many regions in China have introduced new parking management regulations that's aimed at extending free parking periods. And that means to implement more precise billing and lowering the fees in the meantime. So this aim is to reduce the parking cost burden for the general public. It sounds like it's really trying to save a lot of the headaches and the troubles for urban dwellers, especially in mega cities. And for example, in Yichang, in central China's Hubei province, their government has adjusted its pricing policy for motor vehicle parking starting from March the 15th. So not long ago. The new approach focuses on reducing fees and expanding the free parking coverage. For example, under the new rules, small cars can park for free for the first 30 minutes. And after that free slot, the fee for the first hour is just 3 yuan, with an additional 0.5 yuan charged for every 15 minutes extra that you park there.
And it used to be 5 yuan for the first 2 hours.
Right. So that's already a reduction of per hour parking. And on top of that, they also have a first 30 minutes free parking. And that really helps with the short-term parking for a lot of the people, because a lot of the times people drive outside and they just need perhaps a 2-hour park so that they can go into the mall or go out to have a meal, and that's only about 1 to 2 hours time slot. And this is designed specifically for that, in my opinion.
Yeah, right. That example is from Yichang, but it's different. This isn't a nationwide policy, right? It's depending on the region, they put up their own rules.
It is not nationwide policy, but each, I think, area, they're introducing their own localized policies.
Local.
But still, it is not applied nationwide. So in some cities, like Hami City in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, they extended free parking time from 30 to 40 minutes and then reduced its first hour daytime rate from 3 yuan to 2 yuan. And also similar adjustments are being adopted in regions such as Hunan, Luonan in Shanxi, and also other areas. And experts note that this shift actually reflects a kind of transition from simple just fee collection to behavioral guidance. Yeah, so it is kind of using more refined strategies to encourage short stays and higher turnover, and then to ensure limited public parking resources to serve more users efficiently.
Yeah, the reason why I kind of agree with Steve on the notion that this is being applied nationwide in a sense is because by April 2026, over 30 cities and counties nationwide here in China have officially eliminated parking fees in public areas. So that's the premise of the very policy that we're mentioning now that's being rolled out, with many implementing long-term free parking policies. So it's already happening. Some are totally free for people in those regions. And in some particular district, in Chaisong district of the city of Zhejiang in East China's Jiangxi province, for example, they designated some of their public roadside parking spots and nearly 2,500 parking spaces within 45 government agencies and public institutions. They are now free all day, every day.
All day, every day for free.
That's very good news for people in Jiangxi, of course. And we don't see that this is going anywhere further outside of that location, but we do see a lot of the local government doing this as an aim in solving this. Sometimes we call it a people scaring thing of having to think about car fee and having to carry it as a burden.
There's big money involved. It's big money for the people who have to park their cars, but it's big money to run a parking lot too. And that's why these types of decisions are big decisions. In Hanzhou County, that's in Hunan province, they were the first county to offer completely free parking of public parking lots across the entire county. That involves over 12,000 parking spaces. And the local government, they voluntarily chose to give up the parking income of the potential annual revenue of about 160 million yuan. That is huge money. That's over $23 million. So these are important decisions that are affecting a lot of different aspects of life and government, and a lot of money being moved around.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, and especially in these smaller counties, because if you're traveling to these places, you can tell that okay, they have like public parking spaces, but they're mostly empty. And then when you're going to maybe it's a commercial street, well, there are a lot of cars just parking there and maybe kind of quote unquote illegally.
Yeah, parking on the side of the road.
Maybe the management there is not that like on time, so that people are taking these kind of loopholes to actually park for free.
Yeah.
But the thing is that if they are, well, the result is I think it is quite the same because they are not getting any money from that. But the thing is that now people will be willing to park their cars into that designated areas.
Even though it's a little further away because it's free, they'll say, okay. Yushan, you said scaring people away from parking. What did you mean by that?
Because it's a fee that everybody that is driving a car in the mega city, for example, they tend to want to avoid but cannot avoid. For example, I still remember very vividly back in 2022, it was a rainy day in March that year that I drove to work for the very first time. Ooh. I remember how proud of myself I was at that time. I was like texting my parents saying, I even took a picture.
Not while driving, of course.
After I parked. Thank you for the correction. Yeah, after I parked, I took a picture of me parking inside a charging spot very perfectly, very straight. I took a picture. I told them, I did it. It was raining. I did it. And here's where I parked. My dad's like, okay, be ready for the
bill.
The bill you're going to get a few hours later. I didn't believe him. All right. I finished my 8 hours work. I didn't care at that point.
Wow.
I was so happy.
She was distracted.
Okay. Yeah, the perfect word, distracted. And 8 hours later, I came back to the car and drove out, and I was really carefully just trying to navigate my way back home. And then my phone rang and with a notification saying, you've got a bill. And upon waiting for a traffic light, I click open that notification. It says 80 yuan.
80 yuan.
For about 9, I remember overworked a little bit, so 9 hours outside
just spent
of our
80 yuan
office
to
building.
work.
Yep.
Precisely.
That's 80 yuan gone from your daily salary.
Exactly.
You can think of it that way, too.
And as people try to escape from things like that, we try to find spots that's not officially designated as a parking spot. Then you will get warnings, like for the first time, at least for the case of Beijing, and I think in Shanghai too, you get a warning for not parking properly, and then 10 minutes, the guy who warned you will come back. They're part of the traffic police system, but they're not police officers. They will put the ticket on your window, and still you're going to receive notifications on your phone that you've been charged, where you've been kind of fined for the fact that you parked illegally. So that's the very reason why people are scared.
Yeah, and if you add that up, 80 yuan, I'm not great at math, but if you work 5 days a week, 80 yuan times 5 is 400 yuan a week. And if you work 4 weeks a month, that's 1,600 yuan a month.
About that price I'm paying.
Only on parking.
Yep.
And you got to hope that you get that spot because that's not your designated spot. And this is what we're talking about when we say scaring people away. And it is a big burden for people. There's no doubt about that.
Indeed.
And as a result, at this year's National Two Sessions, parking became a key issue for lawmakers and political advisors. Some called on the government, actually, to issue national guidelines that would encourage local authorities to adopt convenient measures like free holiday parking or differentiated pricing. I've got an example of that a little bit later on, or maybe even shared parking spaces. So it has become a huge issue. I mean, do you remember the story I talked about it on my radio show in Korea when it happened. It was in 2021, and it was covered by international media. It was a parking space in Hong Kong that sold for 1.3 million US dollars.
Oh my gosh.
It was in like one of the most expensive neighborhoods.
Surprised but not surprised.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
It was in the Mount Nicholson development of Peak District in Hong Kong. Apparently, that's one of the more expensive neighborhoods in the world.
Yes.
But that made big news. New York City is famous for these types of expenses as well. About $500 a month. That's about 3,000 yuan a month that can come out to. And parking spots in New York can sell for over $1 million as well. So again, to the point, it's problematic for a lot of people. All right, so then with these changes, how have these reductions impacted local people? How have they impacted businesses? Let's talk about how people's lives are changing a little bit.
Actually, when we're thinking about, reduction on parking fees, or some of them are totally free, then we may think about, then the money that goes to the government or these traffic control management, they will have no revenue from these things. But actually, it's probably a way to also boost the economy, on the contrary. So cheaper parking can bring more people out. So that is the theory.
Turnover.
Yes, turnover, and also encourage people to go out. Because when people are thinking about, I need to spend money on just parking while I'm eating, then I should just dine at home.
Yeah, or leave my car at home.
Yeah, so if it's easier and also cheaper to park, people are more willing to drive to malls, grab a meal, or spend time out, which helps local business as well. So I think it is a kind of win-win situation for both sides. Safer and more regulated streets and boosted economy.
And also, it helps to reduce the fact that there are illegal parkings out there. Because if people all come to the acknowledgement that, parking is less expensive as it used to and is less, quote unquote, scary, then of course, why not? If I can park safely for a while, then I think it's worth it than just trying to be chased around and trying to find a place that doesn't charge me. Back to the city of Yichang, there's an example there. So the locals there have noticed that the new parking fee standards in their city have really led to a noticeable decrease in illegal parking around shopping districts, schools, and hospitals. Because previously, when picking up, for example, for a parent to pick up her children or her child, they avoid parking lots specifically due to the short time needed and opting instead to parking illegally on the street. But now this clogged traffic and safety risks kind of drive the parents to stick to the anxiety side and really try to find a way out. And this is the way out. Now, many parents voluntarily park in nearby lots and willingly pay for the much lower price than previously. So it's really bringing a change in terms of how the traffic is managed in the cities as well.
Again, to talk about the Yichang situation. So the new standards lower the starting fee from 5 yuan for the first 2 hours to 3 yuan for the first hour.
Yeah.
And they're also reducing the billing increments from 1 hour to 30 minutes and from 30 minutes to 15 minutes. So that means that people before, they would go there and they might only need to leave their car for maybe, 25 minutes, 40 minutes, something like that, right?
Yeah, waiting for their kids to get off the schools.
Or running errands,
Yeah.
right? But they might have taken their time before.
Right.
Because they're thinking, I'm already paying for the 2 hours anyway. I don't need to rush to get out of there. So when they change the increments, the billing increments, and they change the pricing, then it encourages people to get out of the spot while they don't need to be there anymore. And that's how it works that's why I asked about getting out of the parking spot, because that's part of this, is getting people to get out of there, because over a longer period of time, they'll end up paying more. They pay less in the short term and they pay more in the long term. And so this will help with the turnover too.
Yes, it's not just about price cuts. because it's really also about changing how cities manage parking.
Right.
It's more about a fairness as well, because you pay for exactly how long you park, and spaces turn over faster, and many cities even like cap daily fees so you don't get hit with a huge bill, and then you will be more willing to use your cars and I think use the car parking spaces more efficiently.
I think it's really smart too to avoid what we call the zombie cars. Who park there forever and don't leave and take advantage of it.
Those are called zombie cars. What are the experts saying about this? We always love to hear from the experts to find out whether this is a good or effective idea.
Yeah, the experts see all of these adjustments, such as extending free parking time and implementing precise billing, not just as technical changes, but also as signals of a whole shift in urban governance philosophy. So one of the experts that's interviewed by Legal Daily, called Gao Guangtong, who is a partner at Beijing law firm, he believes that extending free parking effectively meets the temporary parking needs, especially around core commercial areas and hospitals. That's a very interesting point, because when we think about going to the hospitals, people like me, for example, I never think about driving there because I know there will be no place to park. And even if there are, I have to wait for forever in order to get in. But now the new fee structure also improves parking turnover and enhances parking space efficiently without needing more spaces for short-term parking, such as in places like hospital visits, like hospital parking lots inside their court. So yeah, at the same time, more precise billing also align with the principle of fairness, like you mentioned, Yushan. So really, it's helping managing the road resources, because when we look at the parking space, even by the road, it's part of the city's municipal resource as well, and how to utilize it is really a structured system. And now we're really thinking about changing that system, not only for benefiting the people living in the city, but also to, make it more sustainable in terms of how people can really utilize it and don't be afraid of parking.
Is this going to be difficult to enforce, I wonder? Because we're not, and with this question, I guess I'm not talking about parking on the side of the street. The street parking where you have designated spots, and if you pull, I think in Beijing the way it works here is that you pull into a spot and then the cameras around will capture your license plate and it'll calculate the time that you've been there and then send a bill to your app.
Yeah, on the phone.
Which is kind of like Didi, right? It's kind of like after you get out of taking a driver, then you pay your bill. It tells you how much to pay.
Sort of.
Kind of, right? Mm-hmm. I guess I'm asking about places like hospitals or shopping malls or public parking lots. Is it going to be tough to get them to follow these rules?
Of course, there's going to be more specific, customized, and localized policies that is really suitable for that specific area. It's not like that kind of one-size-fits-all policy that we can just totally use it nationally. So, but the thing is that these new parking rules only work if they are actually enforced well and also consistently. And then what the public need to know, or they have the right to know, is that the clear pricing matters, because drivers should be able to see everything upfront, like the free time, the billing units, all of it. So right at the entrance or on apps or before you pulling your car into that spot, if it's not clearly shown, people should have the right to question or even refuse the charge. And I think if they have a better idea on, okay, how much money I'm going to spend on the period of time that I'm parking here, I think they will also be willing to park there.
When you brought your car to work that day, that magical day, Yushan, was there not clear signage telling you it was going to cost you 80 yuan for 8 hours or so?
There were. Just by the road.
Yeah,
but
normally there gotta be.
There need to be
a signage there to tell you how much is the price of that parking area. But
it's a very complicated math, right? It's a tiered thing.
Yeah, first of all, it's a math that you need to calculate.
Right.
Another thing is that there is only probably one plate for that whole street. and then you may need to go through the whole street to see that
Right.
sign.
Yeah, to see the signage. Yeah. Is there any way that this could not work or perhaps backfire? I'm thinking, yeah, the idea is to encourage more people to come out and not be afraid of parking their car. But as we also said before, long-term parking will be more expensive.
Yeah, especially when it comes to places such as airports, train stations. They always have regulations of, oh, if you stay here for a few days or over 24 hours, this is going to charge you extra. And how many based on that, there are specific charges and regulations. So if long stays become too expensive, outside of these venues in shopping malls, for example, in places where people go to on a daily basis, then of course some people won't want to switch to shorter stays because of their needs, and they'll just stop showing up at all.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. Because if the idea is if it's to encourage people to get out of the parking space faster, and you think, well, I'm not going to get out of the parking space faster, so I guess I just won't go to that area.
Right.
That could hurt the local shops and businesses in that area.
Yeah. And also drivers who need to park for several hours and just for a short time, they won't magically need less time, and instead they'll circle into nearby residential streets without meters, pushing the congestion problem onto neighborhoods. So, yeah, are we really trying to solve this problem instead of creating more?
Yeah, by solving one problem in one space, you could be creating a new problem in another space.
But at least as someone who drives, I would say this is a really good place to start. I wouldn't look forward for this to really happen on a massive scale overnight, but yeah, at least in some place in Yichang, this is great for local people, and
Yeah. And that's the idea, right? Is that it's meant to make life more convenient for people. It's meant to make life better for drivers and less stressful, less of a burden for people as they're concerned about how much their parking fees are going to be. I'm very curious to circle back on this topic in maybe a few months or maybe a year's time to really see how successful it's been. But there are international examples. San Francisco is a good example. They implemented a parking system years ago where their prices will change depending on demand. So it's a demand-based pricing system for the city. And they found out through very reliable statistics and data that by introducing a system like that, where if the spaces are in more high demand, then they get charged more, and the low demand ones are cheaper, people kind of figure out where to go, and it has an impact on traffic as well. Interesting story, that is for sure.